Hi, I'm Sabrina Woodland, and I am an intern at Cache Valley Counseling, becoming a clinical mental health counselor. And I'm excited today to talk about dating, couples, and some of those topics. Today, what I wanted to focus on is how to keep and rediscover and keep rediscovering the romantic, passionate connection in long-term relationships. This can be a tricky subject and one that I think everybody can definitely relate to and benefit from. So, when we talk about partner love, a lot of times we talk about two different kinds of love. We talk about romantic love, and that's the one we see in the movies and the one we all feel when we first meet our person and we have the butterflies in our stomach and everything is so exciting and this person is the best thing we've ever known in our whole lives and we can't wait to see them and learn everything about them and discover and visualize a future together. That's the romantic piece. And then the other part that we talk about is called partner attachment, or sometimes people call it companionate love. And that's the long-term, stable, steady, committed, lasting love piece of a partnership. Now, these two things don't have to be at odds, but sometimes it feels like one is what we have at the beginning, and then we can kind of slide into a little bit more of steady, but maybe losing connection in our long-term relationship. So today, what I wanted to talk about is these two kinds of love, how to bridge them more in our long-term relationships and have a lot more fun. So, a little bit more about the romantic love. The other piece of that that we've found in studies is according to self-expansion theory, there's also the piece of when you are falling in love, you are also integrating that person into yourself. You want to take on some of their characteristics. They inspire you. You want to have them be part of yourself, bringing them into yourself. Um, but after that initial discovery and excitement, sometimes that self-expansion, that coming together and wanting to keep discovering each other goes down. The other part, of course, in romantic love is passion. And there's was a study by Baumeister in 1999 that concluded that passion is a function of changing intimacy. So, and let's just define intimacy for a second. Intimacy is closeness, connection of all the categories, not just physical, but also emotional, mental, intellectual. It's feeling that connection, that safety between you and your partner. And it's changing in the beginning of that relationship because you are building it and you're discovering and you're confiding and you're sharing things that you maybe you've never shared with anyone else. And this is the person you want to share those things with. That is so exciting. And that intimacy creates passion, that changing, building intimacy creates passion. Um, and as you go along in your relationship, that also can wane a little bit as you feel like, well, I've kind of discovered a lot of stuff now. I kind of know this person really well. They know me really well. Um, and corresponding with that, sex is also at its height with that height of passion and intimacy in the beginning and tends to go down in frequency as the relationship progresses. It doesn't necessarily mean it goes down in quality, but it does go down normally in frequency. Um, so if you hear some of these statistics and you're like, wow, this is sounding a little gloomy that these statistics are going down in these long-term relationships, um, don't be discouraged. Today, we're going to talk about how passion and joy and excitement can still be a part of your long-term relationship and how to do that. How to, if you feel like you've lost that, how to bring it back, or if you're just trying to keep it exciting and keep that connection that you've been working to keep, this is the place to be. So I'm going to go through 5 different ways that you can keep that romantic and that partner attachment love both coexisting, both growing in your relationship. So the first one is new experiences. And like I kind of mentioned before, novelty, discovering something new, whether it's joint passions and maybe supporting a cause that you both believe in. It could be learning how to surf or ski or play chess or knit, whatever it is. Doing something new together ignites those same kind of reward centers in the brain that you also have in that beginning of your relationship when you're discovering each other and your interests for the first time. So this is good news. This is fun. These are perfect things to do on dates if you're wanting to do dates together. Try something new, take a dance class, go on a new hike. There's so many different things as long as you're both equally interested in doing it. Um, the next one is number two is sex. And of course, um, just like we've talked about with intimacy, re the closest relationship and the closest sexual connection comes from having sex frequently and also being close into you're having your intimacy uh be emotionally close, but the two help each other. So more frequent sex helps you have closer intimacy, more emotional intimacy motivates you and helps you to have more frequent and higher quality sex. um, Number three is intimacy, and we are going to stay here for a minute because there's a lot to cover, and this is such a key in keeping that romantic love alive and also supporting that long-term, stable, safe, steady connection that you have in a long-term relationship. So like we talked about before, intimacy is that closeness you feel emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually that you share with each other. And usually that you just feel like I don't feel this close, this kind of um, person that I can confide in except with my partner. So, so how do you increase some of that intimacy? Especially when you two know each other so well, you've been together for years. How do you increase that? You know, a lot of times you think you've shared everything you can possibly share. Oh, my partner's heard all my stories so many times. But a lot of times you can surprise yourself as you think about um, experiences in your life. There's always something that you haven't, a story you haven't told. Maybe something that's a little more tender that you haven't ever brought up to your partner. So this is a perfect way to increase intimacy is to disclose, to share something maybe you haven't shared before. Um, Maybe it's something from when you were young. Also sharing something maybe that you're worried about, sharing a fear that you have. Even though, you know, we talk about it on your dates to maybe not talk about the kids and the bills and all those stressors that can be stressors sometimes. Um, Sharing a fear or sharing something that is close to you emotionally so that you're confiding, that is a great way to increase intimacy as one person shares, the other person hears and listens and supports. Um, Expressing gratitude for something that you saw in your partner that day. I mean, every day, seeing something, seeing a quality in your partner that you just express, hey, you know what I noticed today? I noticed how much you listened when your client talked to you. And I just really admire that in you, expressing gratitude for the person that you're with. Um, Also, like, how much are you looking forward to just being the two of you? How much have you been looking forward to this date that you're on right now? All of those things and create appreciation, confiding, sharing, disclosing, sharing stories, all of those things increase emotional intimacy. And while we're on that subject of sharing and communicating, let's talk about a really important part of the communication process, and that is tone. I know it's not something you hear maybe too much, but Dr. Gottman in his book, The Relationship Cure, and he's an expert in couples and marriage and a therapist. And anyway, he talks about how in communicating in relationships, 7% of that communication comes from the words themselves. Another 38% comes from the tone. And the tone includes, well, we're going to talk about the definition of tone, but and it also includes like eye contact and body language. Um, so I know like everybody's had this experience with tone where you're like, you know, the words you're saying aren't too bad. It's the way you're saying it, whether you're having that conversation with your partner or maybe like with your parent or your teenager. It's the tone. We all know the tone makes all the difference. So let's just talk about tone for a second and break it down because if we can be more aware of the tone that we use when we communicate, um, and just be real about it, it can help us when we are communicating tender things and when our partner is communicating tender things with us, that we can really be genuine and show where our heart really is. So tone has four different parts of it. It's got pitch, volume, pace, and timbre. So pitch, is high or low. If you're talking in a high pitch, it can set off alarm bells, it can sound defensive. So we want to lower our pitch so that it is steady and so that people can trust that. It also sounds a little more confident as well. Volume, that's a pretty obvious one. Nobody wants to be yelled at. So we want to keep our volume steady, low, or it can be excited, but we want that volume to be um, reflective of that we're being careful with the person that we love. Pace. So number three, pace. This is an interesting one to me too. A lot of times when you're having maybe talking about something hard, if someone's talking really fast and darting around, the person listening is feeling like rushed and feeling like they're not sure how to respond. So if we can slow our pace, and really slowing down is really the key in a lot of this, but if we can slow our pace to sound more deliberate, to sound more thoughtful, more considerate is what it shows. And we're choosing our words carefully, so we're slowing our pace. That can help with our tone as well. And the last one is timbre. And timbre is probably the most I would say important in the relationship because timbre is the emotion that you're communicating as you are talking. If you are saying words with a um, reflective and from a place of love, emotion, that's going to be received really differently, of course, than if you're angry or you're sarcastic, or just feeling sad or angry. So reflecting the feeling that you have inside, and sometimes that takes some practice. But that's what timbre is. So sometimes it is good to practice, even if you practice like in a mirror, because sometimes it'll surprise you when you think you're communicating uh, love, if underneath that you have fear or you are angry or resentful, that sometimes comes out when you don't even realize it does. Just like we're talking about with tone, I mean, that can come out in your body, in your eye contact, or in just the way the words sound coming out of your mouth. Um, so if you can summing all this tone up into one thing, if you can focus on speaking from the heart, and coming from a place of love and compassion, then usually the tone will take care of itself. So wanted to just, I know that was a rabbit hole, but had to go down that just because we work so hard on communicating with the people we love, and sometimes we don't do ourselves any favor if we're not aware of the tone we're using. So practice, think about it, be aware of the tone that you use. It makes such a huge difference in your relationships. Um, and it also is what helps you and your partner feel safe when you are trying to have these intimate communications with each other. Um, so I also wanted to bring up there was actually this is just to underline how important tone is. In 2015, there was a study that they did at the University of Southern California, and they followed 100 couples for hundreds of conversations, which they recorded, and these conversations were taking place during couples therapy. And what they did was they tracked the tone and also the behaviors. So if they noticed that there were more behaviors of like blaming or more positive behaviors of acceptance. And they track these couples not only during these conversations, but then they continue to follow those couples for 5 years. And what they found is that the tone of voice that these couples were using in their therapy sessions predicted the outcome of their relationship, whether it tended to keep building or tended to deteriorate. So I just wanted to bring that up too, because it really, really underscores the way we talk to each other, the way that we communicate with our tone, really says so much about where our relationship is and also where it's going to tend to go. So if we can correct that, if we can make some changes if we need to, and just be aware of that, that can make a huge difference as we're trying to increase that intimacy that we're talking about. Okay, next, after intimacy is self-esteem. And self-esteem might seem like not an obvious part of this dating and keeping that love alive, but um, feeling confident in who you are as a person lets you love more strongly without fear or feelings of unworthiness. It lets you really open your heart. If you're feeling not great about yourself, it's really hard to be able to open your heart, to be able to create an environment where you can show up and where you are willing to give and receive love. Um, so if you're feeling a little low in that area, which is so normal, we all cycle on that. Here's just a few suggestions to build on that self-esteem. One suggestion is to journal, and this might feel uncomfortable, but to take a minute and list all of your natural abilities. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm a good dancer or I'm a fast runner. It's like those, it's also those really, that's great. You can list those, but also some of those really subtle things like I'm a good listener. I'm good at seeing what people need and making plans so that they have what they need. So many different things that you can think of. Um, and sometimes it takes a minute. And if you're really desperate, you can even ask loved ones or friends to help you come up with this list. But make a list of those things that you're naturally good at. Think about those and how much the things you're good at help you and other people. Another thing to do is to prioritize some time every day to do something that nourishes you. And that can be anything. It can be a physical thing. It can be taking a bath or a walk. It can be a spiritual thing, meditating or prayer. It can be an intellectual thing, reading a book you've been really wanting to read. It can be so many different things, or eating a really nourishing meal that you get to pick what it is. Um, so pick something every day that honors you, and then keep that commitment to yourself. And as you honor yourself and your own needs and keep those commitments to yourself, it raises your self-worth and your self-esteem because you're worth keeping those commitments for. Okay, and then the last one, number 5, is motivation. So when it comes to relationships and kind of your behavior in your relationship, there's two different kinds of motivation. There's approach and there's avoidance. So approach is a desire for positive outcomes, for fun, for gratitude, for let's make things better. That's kind of an approach type motivation. Um, an avoidance motivation is to trying to avoid the negative outcomes like conflict or rejection. So where we're coming from when we're trying to work on our relationship and our love connection with our partner, if it's a place of an approach motivation, we are feeling positive. We're feeling like, let's try something new. Let's do something together. Let's work on this together. It's going to be great. Um, and if you're coming from an avoidance place, it's fear that it's not going to go well. Maybe you've had a history where you've tried these things and you're feeling discouraged and it's hard to put yourself out there. And that is really very understandable. Everybody has patterns that they get into and cycles they get into in their relationship that cause them to be afraid and to avoid negative, hard feelings. And that's actually even more common in women than it is in men. But coming from that avoidance motivation really does keep us stuck. And it keeps us in a place of fear where we can't allow ourselves to adventure out and see the possibilities for a better day and a better relationship. So if you're in that place of avoidance, it's okay, but maybe it's time to change tactics and try to do something new. Um, so that's my 5 suggestions for um, keeping and rediscovering and keep rediscovering that romantic connection along with that partner attachment, companionate love. And the idea is really you don't have to lose the romantic part of that connection as you move into your long-term relationship. In fact, the two work together so beautifully because you have the passion and the fun along with the safety and the stability and the even deeper emotional intimacy that only comes with time and being able to truly see and know each other. So I hope that this was helpful for you today. If you would like to come and learn more about this and work on your relationship, of course, we would love to have you at Cache Valley Counseling. Hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.